All right. It is Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. It is Tuesday, meaning that it's a Livestreams Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's really great that I've seen at least 35 people were waiting. So let's see. Let's see how many people we have here. So before I will look into chat, you continue, sending your messages, and don't forget to mention where you're from. Before I will jump into the chat, I would like to introduce our today's guest, my dear friend, Anton Arhipov from JetBains, and he will be here today with me and helping me to run this awesome live stream. Anton, welcome to Livestreams.
Yeah, hello. Happy to
Where
be
you
here.
we have this tradition where the people joining, if they joining in a live or they join as a guest, they usually tell where they're from. And like I'm coming from my third New Jersey studio, where I am airing almost a whole season of this live stream show, almost a year. Like last year we started this. Where are you coming from? So where is in
So,
the world you are now?
so I'm currently located in Tallinn. I would like to say the sunny Tallinn, the capital of Estonia, but it's not so sunny today outside. Yeah, it's the evening time. It's 7 p.m. right now for me, and well, I'm happy to join this time for this live show, and I think it's the first time I actually doing live show.
You're doing the live shows like almost every week or every day on your
It's
YouTube
different. It's
channel.
different. It is different.
All right. So like Anton, what can you say you do there? What do you do at the JetBrains? Like what brings you here apart from the being awesome and agreeing with me to join this endeavor for a couple weeks to prepare and the 2 hours of teaching people stuff. What's your major at the at the JetBrains?
Yeah, I'm a JetBrains developer advocate in Kotlin team. So I'm working with Kotlin developers to bring the awesome language to the crowds of Java developers and not only Java developers. I'm mostly focused on the server side development and cloud as well. So all kind of frameworks, um, cloud providers, configuration files, whatever. So I'm not
Yeah,
into
and I think
mobile that much.
you already have a very good audience of people
People
already
already
ready.
love Kotlin, right?
Yeah, ready to love Ktor. So Ktor name is very interesting because like it's pretty much the same way as I write my name. So it's Viktor Ktor. So in this case, it's actually perfect for our live stream show. All right, so let's see what we have here. So we have some regulars here. We have Robert. We have Dave. And as always, Dave, have a nice day. We have Andreas from Colombia, Tony from Winnipeg, another regular of our show. Thanks so much for joining. Thanks so much for joining us today. So George from Brazil, uh, Quinzon from Indonesia, Morocco, Nigeria, Malaysia. Um, and
All
all
over the
right,
world.
some Europe, Anton, and Vyacheslav from Kiev. You are from Israel, so we went to other side of the world now. Netherlands. um, is it Anton? Is it your T-shirt is reference to duck typing in the times where you were a huge
It's not
fan of
it's not a
Groovy?
duck. It's not a
It's not
duck
a duck.
actually. It's
What's that?
this this bird that runs fast and
Uh,
hides its head into the sand.
I know
I
what's
don't
what's the name
remember
in
the
English?
name.
Yeah, orchid or something like that. Um,
Ostrich.
so ostrich, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Canada, Houston, Texas. Namaste from India, Raminder, and namaste to you too. Great. All right. So first time we have someone from Faroe Islands. Wow, that's pretty cool. And that's awesome. Egypt, Germany. Yeah, that's Madagascar. Wow, welcome. That's pretty cool. Nottingham, awesome. And we have Bogdan from Odessa. Ostrich, yes, exactly. That was ostrich. Great. All right, Bjorn from Netherlands. Well, nice. So, friends, thank you so much for joining today. So, what are we going to do today? So, we'll try to do some interesting thing. So we will try to teach you something new today, and something that is maybe slightly different from the things that we did before. Let me bring this back. Do not forget to subscribe and follow us in Twitter. We kind of sort of interesting people. So Anton, what are you going to be doing today? So you mentioned that you are focusing on the server side development with Kotlin, and if you go to youtube.com/Kotlin, you'll find the Kotlin YouTube channel, and Anton is running their segment on the server side, specifically on Spring, and now we start doing some of the Ktor development. So what is Ktor, Anton? So if you can, briefly.
As you said, I'm running some stuff about Spring on our channel, but Spring is not the only framework. By the way, Spring is like the most popular framework. It's not a secret; everybody know that. And there is also a bunch of other frameworks in Java world, but they are all like implemented in Java and tailored for Java development, and they are kind of retrofitting the support for Kotlin right now. So actually, Spring is really well supported for Kotlin development, and but there are also like Kotlin native frameworks, let's say, that they are implemented in Kotlin from ground up. All of a sudden, I started to hear some
I
echo.
think I forgot. I think I made the same mistake. It's automatically switched to another. Give me a second. I'll fix that.
1, 2, 3.
Give me just 1 second.
1.
All right. Sometimes,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect.
Sometimes devices are too smart. Sometimes devices are too smart, and I'm getting the. I was trying to check like what the people seeing in the YouTube, and my headphones switched to another device. So I apologize for that. And you were saying about Spring. Sorry.
So I was in the middle to say that there are some frameworks that implemented from Kotlin ground up and Ktor is the framework that is implemented in Kotlin, and it's developed by the team at JetBrains. Initially, it was kind of a test bed for testing the language features, testing coroutines, for instance. So basically, the community could come and see how the team is using Kotlin for server-side development, for implementing libraries, for implementing the framework itself. But now it has grown. We are using Ktor to build our projects, our products, even like the teamware product that we have for team collaboration. JetBrains Space is kind of the new one, and well, Ktor includes two parts. It's a server framework and also a client. And client is a multi-platform one, so you can actually target JavaScript runtime, JVM, and native environments with that. But it's just a client. It's just a library for making the HTTP calls. And what we are talking about today is the server-side component, which is JVM only at this moment.
Mm-hmm. And speaking about the clients, we're gonna showing some cool stuff. In my opinion, it's some cool stuff that some of you've seen this when we did this with James, and we kind of like touched this a little bit. How to use Kotlin DSL features and extension functions to build a really language that will be suitable for solving some of the tasks. And specifically here, we're going to be using this for building HTML. We will show you how you can enable integration of two components through Kafka, how you can use Kafka there. Obviously, because you're on the Confluent YouTube channel, which is all about Confluent and cloud, and the Kafka always in our hearts and minds. So the only one place where I'm not be I will not be ashamed about talking about Kafka, because all of a sudden on other places people are talking about this and saying, hey, like, why are you always talking about Kafka? Because I am talking about Kafka. So let's see. We do have some representatives from Wakanda Forever. Ricardo.
Hello, Ricardo.
Okay, so people from Morocco, Brazil. Wow, nice, super cool. Yes, we need a field trip. We desperately need a field trip. Hopefully everything will end soon, so we will do a field trip. All right, so I will ask my someone from my team, either my producer or another producer, to share the link. So today, let me share my screen real quick. What we're going to be doing today. There would be one place that will have some of the explanations about what are we going to do, and I will pass some of the microphone to Anton. He will walk through this on the very beginning. But if you don't see this link yet on my screen, I will put this right now. It's going to be Gamov dev/Ktor-Kafka. So if you go into this one, HTTPS. So you will get access to this walkthrough. So the document that will include some of the things that we will be copy pasting. If you want to participate and join us to try to do the same thing as we do together. Thank you so much that Victoria just posted this in our YouTube channel. Also, we're going to be using Kafka in the cloud. If you want to use that, we're going to be giving away the coupon code for $300 that will include, and I will show you how we can activate this. And I will passing the microphone to Anton, and he will walk us on the very beginning how we can get started with the bare minimum project. And before that, let me just quickly walk you through about to the actual task, what we're going to be doing today. So this workshop is highly inspired by Kafka tutorials, and many of you know that developer.confluent.io, this is the place where you can learn about all things about Kafka, and specifically if you go to tutorial section, you will find some of the things. Essentially, there's a tutorial about aggregation called running average. If you don't want to do anything with Kotlin, which I don't know why you wouldn't, because this code looks much nicer than code in Java, you still will be able to look this one. There's a Kafka tutorial that explains how we can do this. But we're going to do Kotlin flavored plus some of the additional cool bits. And if we will have a time, we also will show you some cool demo that we built with Anton together. That's one, it's like a geospatial app, and we'll see how it goes. So essentially, that's our today that's our today's setting. We're going to be having one application. In this case, it's going to be just a regular web application. From this web application, we will have a form. When we put some rating information, we submit this into ratings topic. We will have some background processes that uses Kafka streams, and this background process will calculate running average of rating. So it is not super accurate way to calculate the movie rating, but it actually demonstrates some of the cool features of Kafka streams, like a stateful stream processing, how to do aggregation, how to use state stores, and things like that. And after that, result of this will be placed in the rating averages topic. That will be, after that, consumed from Kafka consumer, also written in Ktor. And after that, the result will be placed in the JavaScript, and you will see this in the browser. So that's the idea. That's the idea what we're trying to do today. And the front end will be written exclusively in Kotlin. And some sprinkles of JavaScript. I didn't learn yet how I can write the Kotlin and after that compile this into JavaScript, but I think it might be a next interesting exercise to do. So Anton, I will passing the microphone to you, so you will walk us through how, when you just started, how you will bootstrap new project. All right.
All right. So Ktor, when you go to the website, ktor.io, you actually see the first example, how you write a minimal hello world example. Let me probably zoom it a little bit. So you start the embedded server. You can specify which engine should the application use, either Netty or embedded JT Tomcat, or it also comes with its own coroutines-based engine, which is currently experimental. But by default, we suggest to use Netty. And then you specify routing logic, like let's say you execute a GET request and you should get a response saying hello world back, right? Nothing too complicated, but that's the very minimal example. You don't get any kind of configuration file with that, so it's just like a toy. Let's say it's rather a toy than really
So
building an
I
application
think
or a microservice.
couple maybe years ago there was a very trendy thing to do, is create a tweet or like tweet the full-blown application. Remember the time when the Spring Boot
Yeah, it
started?
probably fits in.
Yeah, so the people were tweeting the things, how they can do this in Groovy, how they can do this in even Java, when the Java 8 and Java 9 and some other improvements came about, people doing this. And I think it's still tweetable. I think it's tweetable. But do so many listeners, many watchers of this YouTube channel knows there's like a start.spring.io. Is there something similar for Ktor?
Yes. Yeah, so if you want to generate a Ktor project, there are two options. You either go to start.ktor.io and generate the application that you need with all the dependencies. Basically, it generates a project, right? So you may choose a Gradle project with Kotlin DSL. You say that it should be a server engine Netty version of the Ktor framework itself, credentials, or like how do you call them, Maven
Coordinates. I call
coordinates,
it
right?
Maven coordinates. Yeah.
Right, and then all kind of features that you might want to use in your project. Let's say you want to build UIs with free marker. You are free to choose the free marker feature, and actually the project is not just generated with the dependency. It also generates a code snippet that you may adjust accordingly as you wish, right?
Yep.
Or the other way is to actually go through the IntelliJ new project wizard and create new project. There is a Ktor plugin which you should install first, of course, and then you basically do the same. So you go
Will this
next,
work with Community Edition? Usually people
right?
asking
It will. It
about
will.
Community Edition. Yep.
It will. Probably there will be. The team is currently thinking of separating some functionality into Ultimate Edition only, but the Bootstrap I think should stay in the community version, and some of the inspections probably will go into Ultimate Edition.
Or
So
maybe
we
Ktor 2EE. Similar thing is Java 2E was
yeah,
available only
Ktor
Ultimate.
2E.
Uh,
Right.
some
So let's let's
enterprise
do
features.
let's do a very simple project right now. So I'm creating one project. I'm adding this HTML DSL library or a feature to the framework. By the way, for every feature on the right hand side, you can get the example and how it's applied, how to use it, what you will get with that, and so on. So we click finish. Basically, the project will be created. It started for on some other screen for me for some reason, but and basically it generates a project structure which is slightly unfamiliar to Java developers who are used to Maven and Gradle.
Or
Um,
maybe Eclipse users. I remember when the Eclipse was creating this kind of like a weird structure when you have a SRC and like a classes something and there's nothing, some
yes,
weird
it's
structure.
rather familiar to those who did not use Maven or Gradle, right? So you are usually using like src and test on the top level, and then maybe you add some more folders for the resources or for whatever configuration files. And here we have the same when okay, with screen sharing, IntelliJ is not so fast, but let's wait.
It's
I
okay.
think.
It takes some time. We can take some questions meanwhile. So Ashish says that I like Maven more, but Gradle seems to be modern. Ashish, write down why you like this more. Do you like writing more XML? What is this that you like in Maven more? That would be very interesting to know. Thank you, Tony, for your support. We also love you. How Apache Kafka synchronized with Ktor for its HTTP session through constant Spring API? I'm not sure I understand this question fully. Maybe there's some of the background, I assume, because there's a Spring, there's a Ktor,
Okay, one thing that is
Kafka.
missing. One thing that is missing is that the current generator generates the Gradle project without the reference to JCenter. And that is unfortunate because the latest artifacts for Ktor are published only to JCenter, not to Maven Central.
Yep.
So we actually need to add it manually.
We need to fix this later. But unfortunately, JCenter is sunsetting. Some of the things need to be, shuffled around and make sure that your build will not break. So make sure that you're doing this. If you host anything in your in the bin tray before, you probably already hear the news. But hey, so it's never.
So here it is. That's our minimal application. Of course, it's generated. I'd like to clean it up a little bit. I usually don't like those comments being added to my code without my knowledge, and I'm actually ignoring all those annotations as well. So what we have here, we have two endpoints, one the slash and the other one is HTML DSL, which demonstrates the HTML response. So that's the whole application. We have a main method that executes the engine. Engine is the net engine, and then this is the way in Ktor we start the applications when we want to actually build a microservice that is configurable, and configurable by an external configuration file called application.conf, which is a HOCON configuration. Right? It's a HOCON format. It looks very much like JSON, but it has its own
One thing I can say, and I didn't know that I would say this, the HOCON was popularized by this open source library called typesafe config, or just a config, I guess. Name is rather ambiguous, right? But the format and this config actually supports property files and supports Java property files, support the conf files, and I think JSON as well. But I never thought I would say that I really like something that came from Scala community somehow. This is the framework actually doesn't have zero dependency on any other tools. If you need to configure your application at some point, I highly recommend you to look to this one. It's if you just like Google typesafe config, you'll find this. And for that matter, the Ktor developers picked this up to configure. In a few minutes, I'll show you. We actually support HOCON config for your Kafka application in Confluent Cloud. I'll show you this. It's actually rather nice than YAML, right? Write down in the comments if you.
I like it a little bit more because I think it's not dependent on how many spaces you do in the beginning of the line.
It's not indentation.
Not dependent on the indentation.
Right. I agree. That's awesome. All right. So switching back to your screen.
Right. So that's the configuration file, and it's very minimal. You may add your own options here as you wish, but these two sections are basically essential. We need to configure the port. The logic is that we say that default port is 8080, and if we want to, we can override that with the system property or environment property. And the other application block basically says that we have a list of modules in our application. And this list of modules is basically a list of functions. And the only function that we currently have is this module function in the application.kt file. Click on that. So that's the function, right? We may add more functions and say that they are modules. So it's just a naming, just a convention. It's not something that has to implement some interface or at least implement a list of methods, implement a lifecycle, nothing like that. It's just a function. And inside that function, we may use these extensions that are provided by Ktor. And this time we are using this routing extension that configures all those routes in our web application. So here you are. We have two blocks with routing. Actually, those are excessive because the application was generated. We don't need to have two routing blocks. We can have one routing block and just have two get methods to configure, the responses.
And as you can see here, the routing, it is actually a function. And the function with receiver, this is way how you can extend APIs and build calls that look very much like your something DSL, something that you're writing rather declarative.
So here's the function itself, which is an extension function to a route, and it receives this block. This body is a block actually, which is a
lambda.
Which is a lambda.
Which is a lambda. It's our And very much we were while we were developing some of the things, we also were figuring out some better application structure. And we came from the Java background. We always trying to see how the current methodology will fit in the things that we already know. The Kotlin and Ktor is actually kind of sort of like pushing you, maybe nudging you, not the pushing you, right? So nudging you to more like a functional approach style or composition style rather than inheritance. So you will see many examples of this throughout the demos that we're going to be doing right now. So write down in the comments if you actually follow with us, like you actually were able to create this kind of like a skeleton project structure, like everything is compiled, and Anton will show, some of the cool bits, how to run this and how to, do things.
Right. So I'm actually starting the application right now. What I did while you were talking, I extracted a method just to demonstrate that those routes, if you have many of them, you can start structuring them by extracting, some parts of this routing logic into dedicated functions. And that's an example. So we have an extension function, which is a DSL, its name, probably unfortunate name. Okay, never mind. So it's an extension function to the routing class, and cool. I'm calling this function within the routing block.
What's the lambda? Explain this a bit for those of you who don't know, or for people who don't know. What's the lambda? How we can say this in 2 words? Okay, 3 words.
Lambda is basically a function, I would say, that can capture
so it
context.
Not necessarily needs to have it might have a name or might not even have a name. It might be just like a block of code.
It's like anonymous function.
Yep. I hope this explanation is sufficient. So.
All right. So the application, when it starts up, we can see it parses the configuration. It tells us which configuration it picked up. We can actually override the default configuration and provide some custom configurations if we want to start the same code base but with different configuration. We may have different configuration files. And then it tells me that the auto reload is disabled because the development mode is off. because I didn't configure that. In the configuration file, I can set the property development equals true, and it will be able to reload the module of the application when something changes. We didn't do that, so that's hence the message. And then it tells me that the application is responding on port 8080 on my machine. Let's see. Where's the... okay, so if I... where is this? How can I bring...
many screens?
Meanwhile, yeah, I have two screens and okay, now I fixed it. Okay, so it's 8080, it responds hello world. That's the text response, right? But we have also HTML response on the different endpoint, HTML, and it responds with this document. Let's see what was the logic inside that block. So we create a body in tag, HTML document,
essentially,
body tag, header, and then we generate a list, a numbered list with this for loop, which is actually a proper, correct Kotlin expression, but inside that tag, right? So since it's a server-side rendering, since the UL is not really an HTML tag, it's a method that
it's a function.
Receives. Yeah. It's a function. It receives a block of code that is executed inside that function. So we execute the for loop and generate that many new calls for that list, right? So we get those bullet points.
Essentially, even though it looks like a declarative approach, but it is actually a functional approach. So even though it looks like you're defining this unnumbered list and putting some list elements there, but what you actually do, you're calling functions and you're composing your code with those functions.
Right. So that's the function, right? Which comes from the library. And we brought this library in by adding this dependency or the feature. We enabled the feature in Kotlin.
All right.
In Ktor.
So let's do a quick question from the audience, and after that we will start building our app. Can you show some of the unit tests? And actually, I think it's generated by...
Yes, it's generated. So if you wish to, basically just JUnit test, and there is an extension provided by the library with test application that receives the module that we have created in our application, the same function basically, where we can say that this is the testing mode, right? Depending on how you run the application, this might be important. And then we basically start run the request. When the application starts within that function, then that function will execute this block of code. This is also a lambda, right? Which is actually written outside the parameters list. So we may write this code like this. There are two lambdas. This is the first one, and this is the second one. So the first one basically executes our application in test mode.
If you show the imports, the people will understand that the module call, it's actually from application. This like this guy like this the module on the line 11. It's actually calling application dot, the module, the extension function for our application.
Yep, that's the one. So if we introspect a little bit, that's the one we just implemented. And so when the application is up and running, it will run this block of code to run a request and then validate what is returned back. So this status code should be 200, and the response content should be hello world. That's it. Very simple test here. Of course, for this better, like more extensive testing, you will probably use something like test containers.
If you want to do like some coordination with other external systems. So let's get to the point where people start building apps with us. So what they need to do. So we generated this template. We shared with you this kind of like a walkthrough. It's not super extensive because you have two instructors here talking to you about like what you need to do. And that's why like it's going to be like companion video, and yes, recording will be also available. So what we're going to do now is to show you how you can make this application talk to Kafka. And specifically, we will start by changing our build script. So we're adding some dependencies that we need to bring to our application for simplicity, for less error prone. Instead of doing snippets, we decide to like put the full files, and after that we'll share the full blown application. So you can, why after that? We can share this right now. I will ask to share this in case of there's a Forrest Gump in audience and wants to perform really quick, much faster than us.
Right. So there's a lot of dependencies that I have now added. I basically like copy pasted the same snippet from our instructions. Should we go over those dependencies? By the way, should we explain what they are?
Of course, yes. So I can take this, and also like you grab a glass of water. I will talk through the things. So in terms of dependencies, let's take a look on this one. What do we have here? I do have another look here. So in here, a couple of things that we're using. So we're going to be using Kafka streams in our application. Kafka streams will be responsible for processing. So this is the important thing. The next thing is that we will be using this Kafka JSON serializer. So we're going to be using combination of data class. Kotlin has this nice feature called data class that allows you to generate this in Java we call them POJOs, right? And Kotlin we call them data classes that already might have getters and setters if you need, and all these things. And I found that actually works very well, and we can, because we're using JSON to serialize this JSON, and our the Kafka streams JSON schema survey will be able to infer JSON schema out of the Java object. So we're going to be using this one, and I will show you how we can see this schemas in schema registry in the cloud. Next thing is that it's a standard suspects, like standard Kotlin library. We're going to be using Neti as our engine. Logback is our logging framework. And the rest of the stuff, we're going to be using WebSocket to do server-side push. We're going to be using the JSON. We'll show you how you can do this thing called content negotiation that allows you to essentially serialize the data, or deserialize rather. No, yeah, deserialize the data from the HTTP4. I'm laughing because someone just mentioned POCOs in our chat. So yeah, we were thinking about this, but like we agree that it's conventional to call them the data classes, Kotlin data classes. And we're going to be using JSON to show you how you can like serialize the form data, deserialize the form data that comes from HTTP request into object without like engaging explicit serialization, deserialization techniques. And next thing is that there would be some library that we built for. Actually, we built this from a couple of weeks ago for the JetBains webinar where we showed this ride-sharing application. We call it Kafka. It's like the application that includes everything and puts this the Ktor through some some pains, right? So it's a really big monster that might not include all the best practices. However, it works. We try to reuse as much as code as possible. We try to repeat ourselves as less as possible. So you can find this in this GitHub repository, and you can also run this against the cloud. If you will have a time today, I will show you. How you can run this into in the Confluent Cloud. So, this library is actually pretty interesting. Anton, can you talk a little bit about what is feature in Ktor?
All right. So one of the features that we just seen in our demo application that we run a few minutes ago. So when we configure our module application.module, you can have the testing parameter. It can skip the testing parameter. It doesn't matter. Well, it actually does matter, but in our example here, we can go without it. So when we say that we want some content negotiation, for instance, if we want to our content to be serialized or deserialized from JSON to our domain classes, then we can ask Ktor to provide this for us, right? By enabling some feature. There is a list of features in Ktor framework. Let's open it up. Ktor, documentation, learn, documentation and tutorials. That's already too many clicks, but I'm convinced I can help the team to restructure the documents a bit later. So as I said, there are two sections, two main things in Ktor framework. There is server and there is client, and server is what we are talking about today. So if you go to the server and developing the applications, there's this features list, a number of features that can be enabled, in Ktor if we provide the appropriate dependency. Let's take a look at content negotiation, for instance. Where is that? Content negotiation and serialization. So if we go here, it tells me that to use this feature, I need to call install method and tell which feature I would like to enable. So if I do it like this, I get content negotiation enabled, and then I can configure if I want to use, let's say, Jackson to serialize and deserialize the JSON into and from my data classes, or maybe I want to use Kotlin next serialization module for that. So if it's Jackson,
Yep.
Are you there? Yep, it's there. And then I may configure different properties. Let's say, where is it? So in my documentation, as you can see, if I want to use Jackson, I need to specify the dependency in my Gradle project as well. So when I install this content negotiation feature, I have to call Jackson method. And if I want to configure some of the things, for instance, like should it be idented or should it, which date formatter should it use, I also can specify those properties here, like this. Right. Import. Boom. So we will use this feature in our demo when we serialize a form object, right? When we
can
fill in a form in the
yeah.
HTML page, we click submit. The form is serialized into a JSON document. The JSON is transferred to the backend, and when we receive this content with a post request, it will be immediately mapped to our data class. So we don't have to parse the strings ourselves. We can just automatically get that instance of the specific object.
All right. So let's get back to our thingy. So we do have all these dependencies now. We also, in the Gradle.properties, we can define the versions, so we don't need to copy paste these versions. That's what you do. Like when you generated the project, there would be Gradle.properties that will look like this. Some other components here as well. Now, configuration files. Configuration files. We will have two modules. We might have just one module, but we decide to show separation of concerns, and you can have different teams even maybe develop these modules and things like that. So the while we were working on this, we found there's a kind of limitation of the current configuration API that wouldn't allow us to, say, iterate over certain fields through standard API wrapper that the Ktor provides, because we wanted to have a generic configuration for our application. So that's why we come up with like a workaround right now, but we already failed the issue ticket to the Ktor team, so they will working on this, providing this thing in the future. The configuration of Kafka might be included here in Ktor, not as a separate file. So now, so that's why I like this the OSCON configuration slightly better than YAML, for example. Look how pretty it is, right? So you have the blocks, and these blocks really look like a declaration, and you can have blocks that declare certain features. For Kafka, we have something that will allow to configure some of the generic configuration, like, for example, everything that we're going to be doing this today will be used, this property file, the stuff that you will include in this property file. Now, if you want to configure some of the consumer properties, this is the block where you're providing the consumer configurations, and you can find this consumer config. If you go to inside the Kafka, you will consumer. There should be not a decompiled version. There should be kind of like a normal consumer config from Kafka consumer. Yeah, I think it is config. This is not what I wanted. Let me quickly see what I'm trying to get here. And I go to consumer and producer config. It's a producer config. We need to have same for consumer config. Same thing for producer, and same configuration for streams. So this configuration can now supports all possible Kafka. You can run this in local. In this case, you don't need to have all these property files. You just put the Bootstrap server to local location. We're gonna use the schema registry. You need to use schema registry, where you can get all these things if you want to connect to Confluent Cloud. So if you already have account here, like as myself, you should. If you don't, and we go in with the live streams. And when you go and say clients,
there is a question in the chat about Ktor, if it's production ready. Yes, I actually mentioned it. We are building some of the products on top of Ktor. And also we know quite a few companies using Ktor for building the services with Ktor. So it is production ready, but it's heavily developed. The team is changing a lot of internals, so I'm not sure about what kind of guarantees they give for backwards compatibility. I think within the version, within the major version, it's backwards compatible, but I think if 2.0 comes one day or another, it might not be very compatible with the current version. So it's there is a lot of moving parts.
As always, it's computer technologies and things like that, right?
Yep.
How can Kafka tool can be run for Kotlin, a Ktor pair for AI in GCP region? It's a very interesting question.
Well, whatever can be packaged in Docker container probably can run for everything.
Yeah, correct. So in let me show my screen. If you go to Confluent YouTube channel, in the Confluent YouTube channel, there's a recording of this talk called the Serverless Kotlin and Apache Kafka for Google Cloud. And this is where you can find all extensive information about how to run Java application or JVM application, Kotlin application for that matter, either in Kubernetes if you're using this GCP, or you can run this with the Google Cloud Run, aka Knative, and that's how you can roll this. Check this out, this workshop. I think it was pretty good, on my humble opinion. So yeah. All right. All this framework built on top of Java, and now they're saying Java is outdated and use a so-called Ktor. So yeah, that's
well, one day
that's true.
Maybe Ktor will not run on Java.
Yeah, because of the multi-platform. So a lot of things is happening in this. So where we stand here now, the yeah, I want to show you configuration. So where I can get the configuration for this cluster if you want to connect this to Kafka. So you sign up here to Confluent Cloud. You will be able to. Let me actually walk you through this creation of this cluster really quick. So I will. I'll keep this one, but I will create a new cluster. And so I'm going with the standards. This is how we can select the region. It was a question from Anshuman. So yes, you can do a GCP region. You can use availability zones or single zone or multi-zone. And this is how you can create the Kafka cluster. And if you're using GCP, by the way, in that workshop, we showed how you can bootstrap the Kafka cluster from your GCP account. So definitely check this out. So I'm click the launch cluster. I'm starting this cluster. And now, if you want to connect your application, it's easy. So you're going into this clients, create the Kafka cluster API keys, call it my app. You don't need to even copy it here because a little bit of magic. You can go with Ktor, and there's a checkbox saying show API keys. So you can use this or you can not use this, but API key will be injected here. You can click copy. You can go here into your configuration. In this particular case, my Kafka conf. And in this case, you're just only interested in this like a properties section and the Bootstrap servers. That's what you need to copy and insert into this document. The rest of the stuff is for simplicity, for some demonstration. You maybe don't need this, but we will talk about this in a few seconds. Another thing, cool thing about the OSCON support in IntelliJ is that it shows where there's some errors. It's pretty cool. So this is where you put this configuration, and you essentially good to go to next section where we're going to be doing. Again, if you're doing this with us, or you're trying to do this with us, you can use this code called Cloud 300. And the way how usually people asking like how I can redeem. If you go in here, you go in the billing and payments. I'm running some of the stuff here, and like preparing for demo takes some time. So that's why I use promo code, and you can put the promo code here, Cloud 300, and after that you will get some of the bonus points from us to run this stuff. So let's try to do this. And let us know if you were able to sign in. So you will not going to be charged. Your credit card will not going to be charged, as long as you have enough credits. If you're running just a Kafka and testing this application, you might use this credit for, I don't know, like a couple months. If you will be running something more heavy, like for example, you want to test out KSQLDB, KSQLDB has slightly different prices. So make sure to check those and deploy only stuff that you need. We want you guys have, all the tools. We want you guys to learn, folks. We want to learn stuff from us, but we don't want you get the super overcharged and things like that. So be mindful about usage of resources. Now, so once we did this, like once you configured this, and essentially this configuration file, you can always copy paste this and only replace key and password for this, because there's only things that changes. Another thing that we're going to be using today is a scheme registry. So in your environment, you will be able to create this scheme registry cluster that will be storing some of the information about our metadata. And the scheme registry also has some API keys. You also want to go here and add new API key. It's called Livestreams demo. I saved my API key, click continue. So if I save this, I will be able to use it. Now in my kafka.conf, everything should look like this. I do have a Bootstrap server. I have some properties that use security protocol, JAS configuration, acknowledgement from all brokers in case if you want to make sure that data will be written fully, so it guarantees some of the higher durability guarantees. And this is how you configure scheme registry. So the serializer that we will be using will read this information from here and will configure serialization technique, which brings us to serialization. Remember that jars that we bring in? So those jars actually bring in this Kafka JSON schema serializer. So what we're going to be doing this, because it's a producer, one would read the data from our form, from our HTTP form. We will be able to serialize this into a JSON object, and JSON schema will be stored inside the topic. All right. And the last but not least, we didn't touch the streams yet, but this is how you can do this. In the streams, there's a special section in the configuration file called streams, where you're putting streams specific configurations. You can find those in. You can find this is a streams config. There's a streams. Inside the Kafka Streams jar, and all these streams configurations available there. So like, for example, application ID. application. I guess it's running very low on resources when I'm streaming this from my computer, same way as I show in live code, right? So we're all struggling a little bit.
Regarding the tutorial, I would like
Yep.
to give some tips and tricks here.
Go ahead.
So if we start by adding those configuration files and you are done with that, you copy some code for the HTML view. By the way, we probably should pay attention to that one a little bit more, what it is and why it's done this way, but a little bit later. So once you get to these data classes, in fact, we are telling you that the data class for rating corresponds to the file rating.kt, but that's just a single line of code, right? What changes when you start programming in Kotlin, you have background in Java, for instance, is that normally you put your domain classes like one class per file with all the getters, setters, fields, hash code, whatever methods you generate. And in Kotlin, when you switch to the data classes for modeling your domain, you end up with these definitions. Okay, if you have many fields, maybe you want to declare each field on a separate line, but still it's so few lines of code that you start grouping those data classes into the same file by just, logically placing them into the same file if they kind of are related in a way. So for instance, here in my project, instead of putting them in a dedicated file per class, I'm actually grouping them into I should name it, should be model, right? Model, or domain, whatever the file is. And I just have 2 lines there. Okay, 3 lines if I specify the package. But what happens also with this kind of approach is that when you have more classes in the same file, you probably start reducing the package names as well, so that you don't. If we think about it again, do we really need a namespace for our application code, such as IO Confluent or JetBrains or whatever com dot something? We start building the packages with one level deep, right? In this case, so sometimes you end up without any packages if your application is just small enough, and you can put all the code into, in simple files and just run it. So that's just one effect that I noticed when I started programming Kotlin some years ago. And yeah, so in this case, just wanted to share this. If you want, you can put the data classes in a single file. That's not a problem at all. From the point of view where those classes are actually used, we have application.kt. It doesn't matter how you name this file. We will still have to write the import if it's located in the different package. And if it will be in the same package, then we can just skip the import, right?
And when it generates, it actually gives. It can be used in Java, right? So the same class can be used in Java, and should be fine.
Exactly. So here I have all the code from our instructions here. Maybe we should go into this HTML example a little bit.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. You generated it.
Oh,
so why would
right.
you generate something in code instead of using some template engine?
So, and the answer is really, I don't have a good explanation except it's cool.
Yes,
But
it's different.
Bear with me for a second. So I am that type of software developer that I'm not 10x developer or not 50x developer who uses Vim and like types everything without code completion. I am approving code completion. That's what I do. I'm not writing code. I'm approving code completion. And some of the ideas these days, the time when like 5 years ago, we didn't have such awesome things like, for example, for web development, for front-end development, as we didn't have it 5 years ago, or like 6 years ago. I remember the times when I switched from Flex into like a web development. Right now it's pretty cool, and all these tools can do code completion and all this kind of stuff. They can do linting, they can do validation, statistical check. But we already have those tools in our languages, in our programming languages. And I really like this idea to use like DSLs. If you remember, I did some of the people who follow this channel for a while. I did another talk maybe a year and a half ago about using Kotlin to generate your deployment descriptors for Kubernetes. There was a Kotlin DSL that acts with the Kubernetes API, but it looks and feels like you're typing YAML, but it's actually code that would be validated during compile time. Plus, check this out. In this particular case, this is a very interesting example. I will call it like a data binding for poor people, but that's how it looks like. In this case, I have my model that represents as a map. So we have some movies, and based on these movies, we have a key and value, and those data will go into. This is something that we'll be capturing and sending to the front end. What kind of movie user chose to submit ratings, and this is how I'm adding this like options inside this select drop down. I can use my language construct to do this type of stuff. So in this case, since it's a Kotlin, I can use Kotlin inside my Kotlin. So my Kotlin will produce HTML for me. So that's it. Also, another thing, I don't need to use any other dependency except something that comes with framework already. So I don't need to bring any templating engine. I could, and the Kotlin and Ktor supports that, like FreeMarker, Mustache, TimeLeaf, very popular, and thanks to support of TimeLeaf in Spring, it became very popular. So thank God there's no struts anymore in our lives. Hopefully, the Anton, do we have the struts module for Ktor? Just kidding. No, we don't want this in our lives. Another thing, I mentioned this a few times, and I cannot stress this enough. It's composability. I can, since it's a code, I don't need to teach my IDE to understand my, weird templating ideas that I want to implement. Like if it would be some templating engine, I need to have a plugin that will understand my templating configuration. Here it is a code, and like templating, I can just extend this API. Here's the example how I can extend my plain HTML by providing new HTML tag, and this is the function that comes from Kotlin DSL. So I'm creating this tag named template, and every time when I will be using this tag template in my code, it will be compile time checked, and it would be just like available in IDE and so far and so on. In other things, like I like this like small snippets that we can use. The way how it looks like in, let me show you quickly. For example, if you go into this, we're using this Twitter Bootstrap library to have some pretty, because we engineers, we're not doing anything pretty. Twitter. And in order to install this, I need to do things like, okay, So download Bootstrap. No, not. I want to something like get started. It's old version. I need to go to latest version of the Bootstrap. And after that, I will just do introduction. I need to copy those guys, those scripts. This is the basic template that I need to kind of like have this with the shortcuts like this. It's just like works just perfectly, nice and clean look. This is my head. I can reuse this because I created this like a base function that will create basic functionality of my page, and after that I will just use some JavaScript that will be injected here. So some people might be arguing about this, saying, I'm sorry. It's the spring allergies are hitting hard, but yeah, that's why I like it, and it's a code. You can use same thing like I mean, I don't know. Like I like that. So what do you guys think? Like write down in the comments. Let's see what kind of comments we have so far. All right. So what are you guys talking about here? So why using Kafka with Python is much less efficient? Well, I think the answer here, I think it's not the wand, it's a magician. I think it depends on the person or like depends on the matter of taste. We do have some examples of very efficient usage of Python in using Kafka. If you ever look into a library called Faust from Robinhood, very solid implementation of Kafka streams in Python, and many things that already done in community, already done there. So I kind of sort of like agree to disagree about this. Like I think it's just a matter of taste. Yes, there are more libraries available for JVM than available in Python, but it's just because of community, I guess. Kafka essentially came from JVM world, and many Apache projects came from JVM world. Some of the projects have natural kind of support for Python, like out of the box. Kafka has a client that's supported by Confluent based on Liberty Kafka as well. So I cannot say that it's kind of less efficient. It's just if there's something is that I don't know, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So if I don't know, there's a strong community about Kafka users with Python. Maybe, I don't know. Okay, so yeah, that's Ricardo. Python communicates with Kafka using a library called Liberty Kafka, which is wrapped around Kafka's protocol. This is not native Java library, but it's not less efficient. It's a high performance library, so it should work just fine. All right, so looks like Tony is running in front, and looks like he's getting some success on running this application. Yep, I think we do have some solid engineers from with the memories of the past about struts. Okay, so, and Ricardo said yes, sometimes fun. No, Ricardo, I disagree. You're my friend, but no, struts are not fun. All right, so which brings us to the point of why we're doing this, right? We talk a little bit about this like HTML code. Let's talk about backend. So let's talk about backend. So we have one page, we have a configuration. So let's talk about our application, right? I will open this in my IDE so I can navigate here. So couple cool things. So as Anton already talked about this, content negotiation, this is something that we're using in order to get some of the data from a request and turn this into some object. And the way how it works, and it works exactly like this. So This is actually pretty cool. I like the this Kotlin ability to get information about type during the development time. So we can use this and inside our function implementation. So what will happen based on the data that came into this post request, this function will try to find suitable serializer, or rather deserializer, in order to turn this into object. Once we turn this into object, this thing also will find suitable serializer because it's Kafka producer, and we already configured Kafka producer to use our how we call it, JSON schema serializer. And after that, we're sending a response, yes, it was accepted, and should work. So let me quickly demonstrate this to you. So I will go and run this application right now. Again, I changed this configuration file. Now it will be able to connect to my Confluent cloud. So I will show you what is happening in the topic. So I go ahead, I click run. I run this. Connect it to my Confluent cloud. Now, I do have a Streams module also fired up, but we'll talk about this in a bit. And if I go here, not here, I have a different screen here. Say localhost 8080. Couple things I want to show you, folks. So first of all, it is actually creates a quite good HTML file. So the things that we did with Kotlin produced fairly good HTML file. So in terms of network, let's take a look what we will see here. So I can select some of the movies that I want to submit rating, and I think the Guardians of the Galaxy is a solid 10. One of my favorite movies from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. When I click submit, so what happened is we submitted this. It's a response, but like where our what we submitted. So this is our request payload. We submitted two files, two fields, a movie ID and rating. So when this stuff arrived into on the server side, we produced actual typed message rating, and we send this into Kafka. So let me show you how it looks on the Kafka side of things. So I click done, I click OK, click home, live streams, my cluster. And inside my cluster, first of all, let's take a look on the data flow. So what I see right now, there is a topic rating, and there is my Ktor producer. So Ktor producer writes data in the topics rating. So let's see what do we have in here. If we will be able to see, no, messages we will not see here. We will see messages in a topic. So if I go here, messages, and I get back here in our screen and submit, say, okay, so someone thinks it's not a 10, but maybe 9. Click submit, and now my message should arrive in the Kafka topic. So that's what I did. So let's take a look on this one. And we see here results, so movie ID and rating. So that's our object that we have here. Now, if I go to schema registry, I will be able actually to see what kind of schema I'm using. So in this case, I will be using this rating value for topic rating, and for value will be used this schema. And this is what the serializer will able to do, is infer schema out of this Java object. And Java. Why I said Java? And it's actually a data class when I go in this one. So from this data class. So the interoperability between Java and Kotlin is seamless. So our JSON Kafka JSON schema serializer, it's written in Java, works fine. So now this data about schema can be used in KSQL and can be used in some other places. We will be using this data in our next step where we will start processing these messages using Kafka streams. And that's the part where we submit the post. And another thing is that this is where I convinced Anton that we should not send kind of predefined text messages or predefined JSON. We can still use content negotiation here. And what we see here, so when we said that like everything's successful, we send the data to Kafka, we need to send a response that we accepted this message. And this is what we did. So we created this data class even inline. You see inside the function, we can create this data class. And based on content negotiation, Jackson was able to serialize it and send this back in the form of response. So if I will go here in the response, that's what server side sent us. So that's how it looked. Another cool thing here is that we will talk about the WebSocket after we will finish talking about the stream processing. I would like to talk about this a little bit afterwards. Oh, yeah, and the last thing, that's a couple things. So this is how I send this, the method called respond HTML that allows me to, it's how I can show, no. Is there any way how we can show the types of this? Oh, okay, I can do this one. So in this case, the function respond HTML will take HTML status and block of HTML. So in this case, it's a typed, it's not dynamic, so everything is compiled, checked, and things like that. So my index HTML of type of capital HTML, so I will be able to send this through here. Also, Ktor supports static resources. In this particular case, this is where I defined where these static resources will come from. So I said the /assets needs to be retrieved from meta-inf resources assets. So in this case, my JavaScript file, the code that will be responsible for sending data like form handler and things like that, and some of the JSON WebSocket logic also will be here, will be served as is through this static content.
And we are referring at it in our HTML DSL.
Correct. So inside our HTML DSL, we're just saying that load this JavaScript from this assets folder, and this is how this should work. Let's see if we have some cool questions that we.
I think it's actually time to explain how do we install Kafka feature here.
This is a good point. You wrote this. Just you talk about this.
Okay. In fact, we wrote this at first like 2 weeks ago, and then we extracted into a separate library, which is located now under Viktor's GitHub account. And since we were lazy to publish it to Maven Central, that is why we are using Jetpack to actually download this dependency, right? So in Gradle KTS file, we have this Maven repository, jetpack.io, and then we refer at the specific tag version. Is it a tag version or revision number?
Yeah, exactly. So it says actually git commit hash, right? So it's a SHA commit that will be represent particular version.
Right. So there is Jetpack service that takes the specific revision from GitHub, from Viktor's repository, builds this dependency for us, and our project is able to retrieve it from the server. All right. What is the feature? So if we go to this running average module, where we specify our streaming stuff, all we actually need is to say install Kafka. And there is a minimal DSL for configuring this cluster, right? We say that we want a configuration path. Where is our configuration? Our configuration is in kafka.conf file. That's the OSCON file that we parse ourselves by using this type safe config library. And then we specify
right now
topics.
it's just a workaround. Like going forward, once the feature will be available in Ktor common library, this configuration file, configuration path will go away. Everything will be used, like everything will be driven by application.conf.
Right. So, and then we specify which topics we want. So we created just a minimal DSL for configuring this. And all we need is to specify a list of topics, right? And every new topic is created by using this admin client API, which comes from some Kafka library, right? It's
Yep.
the Kafka
Correct.
clients.
Yeah, and what we did here, we actually wrote small, again, DSL like, but essentially it's a basically builder that invokes the admin API functions to create the topics.
So when we go to this DSL here, it's basically just a function. Again, just a function that takes one single parameter as string, and the other one is the block of code that is executed within the context of topic builder. So you see, it's just one line that does it, right? So we create a topic builder and execute the block of code within the context of that instance and return whatever the builder is producing. So what's the topic builder?
Yeah. So topic builder is just a
simple,
just a Java class. Oh, like a Kotlin class. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a Kotlin class. When do you want this kind of things? Is like when you're mutating a structure. Let's say you're mutating a class, you mutating the fields of the class, or no, when you're building an instance, right? And you want this to be immutable, and the builder is this mutable structure. And at some point of time, when you have changed all those fields in that builder, essentially at the moment when you want to use it, you say, okay, build now. And basically that's represented by this build function in the builder. And then you kind of freeze it, right? You say, okay, now get me that immutable structure. So that is basically what we do. Could you bring up my screen, actually? Yeah, it's a little bit strange to look at myself just without any context. But yeah, that's the build function.
That's how I do it. Just look at myself.
And that was the build function, and that is where's this Kafka feature in the running average?
Yeah.
Yep, it's here. So we essentially just create those structures instead of using the builder API or builder pattern as we have used it in Java programs. This is the idiomatic way how you do that in Kotlin.
So I will quickly show how you would do this in Java in a contrast. Yeah. The way how we were able to simplify things. I'm bringing this the Kafka tutorial that includes a similar code, and if you go and extend this, that's what you do. So those like 20 lines versus like 10 lines. That's essentially what we did. Configuration was injected from one file. There was one common parser that reads this file. There is a topic that defines through the builder, the things that Anton explained. Like here, it uses constructor, and using the mandatory fields with builder, you can construct you have more opinions about how to construct this object. As a matter of fact, the builder pattern used in the Spring Boot Kafka library. So those things is very this like inspired by the work that the Spring team did. I use this library a lot, and I like this very much. So back to Anton.
Okay, so once we have this feature installed and we have configured it, when the application starts, this install function is invoked if we configure that specific module. In our case, it's the running average dot module, right? So if we go to our configuration class here, so this is the one. And when this function is executed, we call this configuration, and all the things that we need will be configured for us. And next, we can start using, start connecting to that cluster by using the APIs. So what are the APIs, Victor?
Yeah, I would like to also talk a little bit here about some of the features that also Ktor has. Like you would say, yeah, but like if you're writing this, the application that doesn't require any HTTP server or whatnot, those type of stuff. Um, Come on.
I think today, even if your application is not serving any HTTP, you still will configure some ports for it to expose some
Right.
metrics, monitoring data, whatever else. So you will still end up running a web application essentially. Maybe it just doesn't have a web interface.
Correct. And another thing that I would like to use is like a tap into life cycle of the application. So mm, the the application the architecture of application of Kotlin application is also kind of like event based, right? So you can sign up for some of the application specific events. In this particular case, I want to start my Kafka streams and do some cleanups when its application is done, when application is either started or stopped. So in this case, like this is how we can tap into these application events. Now, Kafka streams. Many viewers on this channel familiar that Kafka Streams, it is a library that is built in Apache Kafka. It's built in by Apache Kafka community, and it's a string processing library. So what are we going to do this today? So we're going to do a very simple thing. We build this thing called a topology, and that topology will represent how our data will be transformed. In this particular case, this topology contains two things. First of all, we need to get the data from the rating stream. So we need to get this. And after that, we can generate this overage rating data by counting information about number of rating events. And after that, having sum of rating. When we have a sum, we can divide this by number of events, and we'll get like very sophisticated calculation, right? Here's the thing. There's no built-in function for calculating this, the overage that will execute this atomically. So you can say, okay, I can run the function count, and after that I can run the function sum, which is part of Kafka Streams function. However, this will not work with the Kafka Streams because those two operations needs to be happened like simultaneously, so you will not introduce any duplicates in the stream. The full history behind this is very well explained here, and there's even link to Apache Kafka. There should be a link to Apache Kafka wiki that explains the nature of this thing. But we're going to be using this aggregation functionality. So we run this aggregate function that will include a couple things. First thing is the initial state. This is going to be our storage. This is the place that we will store some of the details for our aggregation. Second thing is our function that will perform that aggregation. So the key value, it's a regular suspect. When we get the rating in, we need to do something. But aggregate here, it is our object that will hold a previous result. So this is the place where we do stateful stream processing, where we need to know previous result in order to calculate the current result. So in this case, this thing will be stored seamlessly for us in state store that we'll be using on step 3. We're defining which state store will be used. Another thing, since I'm already running this application, I will be able to show you in the Kafka that let me see, it's a change log, and there should be, it's a repartition. Yeah, change log. So this state store that will include our intermediate data actually will be replicated through Kafka. So in case of application will be down, or in case of the state store on the local computer will be wiped out, those state store will be available, and I will be able to retrieve this. And once we once we're done, once we're done with this is what essentially what we do at the end. We need to calculate. We do have this aggregate, and based on this aggregate, we need to calculate the actual value. So in this case, there would be another one, average ratings change log. So it would be state store for storing actual values. In some of the episodes, in some of the past episodes of Livestreams, I actually showed you how you can use this state store and expose this through REST. So that's why also Anton is correct in assumption on, like, even though you're not maybe thinking that you need to HTTP server, you still will be running HTTP server for some point. So with concept of the interactive queries, you will be able to expose those state store outside world through HTTP call. We're not doing this, but like maybe sometime in the future. Now, and we're writing the result into this rating overage topic. So what's going to happen? Again, let me bring this diagram really quick so you will quickly remember what we're trying to do by the end of the day. We do have a form. We submit the rating into rating topic. We can read this rating topic, but also the Kafka Streams application will be reading this topic, producing some of the data, and writing this data back to rating averages topic, which will be consumed by Kafka consumer that will deliver this through WebSocket into frontend. So this brings us to WebSocket part. We're going into application, and inside this WebSocket part, it's just a simple Kafka consumer. Once I connect it to my WebSocket session, consumer will be constantly reading data from Kafka topic and pushing this data into Kafka. Here, for some reason, I was not able to make the content negotiation work correctly with WebSocket, so that's why I had to come up with this like ugly solution. But probably I'm maybe missing some of the dependencies, or maybe some of the configuration. So let me show you full cycle how it works in my application. So once again, this is my here I will switch to WebSocket, and if I refresh it, there's a couple things will happen. So I will go and show you my console. And when I set my lethal weapon rating is going to be 9, I click submit. So my rating went into my application. My application, let me see, still up and running. Submitted this task into Confluent Cloud. Inside the Confluent Cloud, I will be able to write the result in the processing topic. Let's see if it's actually if it's still the case, if it still works. Okay, so let me try to submit this one more time. Submit. Come on. Yeah, so this is rating overage message just landed from Kafka topic. And as you can see here, since I'm not using any schemas, I'm using just Java serializer for long and Java serializer for double, it doesn't look pretty. Because JavaScript doesn't know how to do it. So that's why schema is another cool thing to have with schemas. However, we got this result, the push through the WebSocket here. And if I'll go to Kafka here, the WebSocket and the messages coming from here. So if I'll continue to submit the ratings for this, I'm getting updated result from Lethal Weapon for Guardians of the Galaxy. Let's do 9, submit. We're getting the result from Guardians of the Galaxy here. The messages should appear here. Because there's a pause. Yep, the messages appear here. As you can see here, also not pretty. Let me quickly show you configuration once again. Our consumer just use log deserializer and log serializer to read this data from Kafka topic. That's what I wanted to demonstrate. I'm wondering, people, if anyone actually tried to run this with us and sign up for the cloud and try to play around with this UI and things like that. Here's another thing that you can do. Here's another thing that you can do in meanwhile. When you let me show my screen again. So the thing that we showed with Anton last time, hopefully it will still working because we are engineers, our stuff always working. So this guy, let me quickly show you what you can do more with Ktor, Kafka, and stuff like that. So let me open Kafka's hour. That's our thing. So I already have a connection to my Confluent cloud server. So what I need to do in my Kafka's hour application, Ktor sample, I will just do run these two applications. One application will be Gradle driver. So going to be two microservices that will be talking to each other, even though they're using the same W writer. They will use same kind of like a root of the code. They two independent apps. They will not share HTTP server and things like that. Compiles. What? No, not compose up. I don't wanna do any compose. I don't wanna do anything with this. Let me quickly disable this because everyone will run this in the cloud, people. So though you if you don't want to do it in the cloud, we also included the Docker Compose file. You need to start this and change configuration in order to run this with Docker Compose. There should be, something like this. I will disable this for now. Let's do this one. In writer. Yeah, speaking about Compose, you can find Kafka tutorials. They use the Docker Compose a lot. If you go into Kafka tutorials, and you'll find the Docker Compose here. You can find Docker Compose in Git repository for this demo application that you will be using. So let's see. This is my application that starts application with driver. Authentication failed. Maybe I'm using wrong keys. Okay, so maybe I just need to go ahead and update my driver config from my existing application. Ktor Kafka. Just go ahead and do bootstrap servers and properties. I will copy it from here because I know that that's work. Inside the Kafka hour, I have a driver. So I'll have this one. And I want to have it here as well. All right. All right, now it's better. So one screen will be using, say, driver screen. Another screen will be using writer screen. And say we have like what? Like 5-10 minutes. So 5-10 minutes, what I can go from here, I can go from here to say MetLife Stadium, MetLife Complex. So watch carefully. So this is where my car right now, and I want to see if my my driver will see my rider. So I'm click here, and all of a sudden this guy appeared on other screen. So this is WebSocket application that sends the data about the current coordination of the rider into Kafka topic. And if I will go ahead click here, so we will see the data will be flowing. Now these two screens will be synchronized for the Kafka topic. Coordinates from the driver will go into Kafka topics, and this is how it will be drawn into front end app of this guy. So where's the Kafka? I want to open a, where is it? Yep, this guy. If I open the Confluent Cloud, I'll see the topics. And there's a topic called driver that will have some of the messages going in with coordinates of the driver, the current state. It's a plain JSON, it's not JSON schema. And this is the difference between plain JSON and JSON schema. If you want to learn more about this, there's a remove.net, my friend and colleague, he wrote this JSON schema. He wrote a blog post about, I guess it was something into file polls. No. Something he was talking about what's the difference between JSON and JSON schema. I saw it, but I will bring this. This is very good materials to read. But anyway, so the message is still coming in, as you can see. Data, if I play, it will write this. So this is example how you can use Kafka to kind of like synchronize to systems. And after that, this data is also persistent in the topic, so as a matter of fact. So that's why you will be able to do some post-processing afterwards. You want to find the routes and the different routes that the driver took to get from point A to point B. Yeah, that's how it goes. Also written in Ktor. This application written in Ktor, and this is yeah. Let's see if we do have any questions, or like Anton, maybe something that you want to discuss as well. All right, so people, make some noise in the comments if you're still watching. I know that it's been quite some time that we're running this already. You know, what's the we're almost 2 hours. It's kind of like with a pre-show.
So far, we can discuss one thing is that
Yeah.
you have been running it with Spring a lot, and now you have tried it with Ktor. What is the impression?
So impression is very interesting. Definitely, Spring is slightly more. I don't want to say mature, because it would be not very fair for Ktor, because Ktor also feels mature. Like there is a very solid thought process, and I see this. They're trying to build something that's slightly different, maybe from Spring. They don't want to like build another Spring framework, or like do better Spring framework. For example, like a Micronaut seems to follow like similar approach. It's aims developer productivity, so that's why there are a lot of integrations and libraries. So Ktor probably it feels like it targets different audience. Maybe it's not they don't try to attract the Spring developers and hey, give up Spring, come and write with us on Ktor. I think the Ktor attracts more serverless type of audience, right? So when you can deploy like it's very simple HTTP endpoints, some people who might not be doing any programming with like Java maybe even before, right? Or like came from some like refugees from Java J2EE world, not even Java EE, J2EE world, where the people will feel that this is something that's interesting and new for them. I'm showing my screen because the application continue to, the pushing data through.
It's a cool application. We should be looking at it, I think.
Yeah. So I think it's definitely something that if you look into fast way to simplify, you need to write a very quick web app. I see some people maybe even using this like writing maybe I don't know like their blog or something like that using the Ktor. I've seen. How you call it this Kotlin? Kotless. Kotless. It is another cool project that I want to take a quick look because it is a lot of serverless is something that recently started becoming more interesting and many questions people are having, and how Ktor can be used with these codeless. The framework in deploying like a serverless function with like a simple HTTP endpoints and things like that. So that's my impression. I don't. Definitely, there's some things that I miss because maybe I'm approaching this from perspective of this, solid background of Spring. So that's why I'm looking to similar things. But after like 2-3 weeks that we were working on this like very extensively, I probably see myself using this more for like very simple things. Like I said, like when I want to build Kafka Streams application with interactive queries, probably it would be pretty easy to do with Ktor. So I don't need to have any like a super Ktor has built-in client for HTTP and web sockets. Those things would be essential if building kind of like interactive query application. Again, folks, if you don't know what I'm talking about, just go into youtube.com/Confluent to find a playlist about live streams. I did a lot of videos when I explain in details. I implemented the interactive query service using gRPC. I show how you can do like access the state stores to the REST, so you can find this. So yeah, that's I said if you need to have like a very thin wrapper, it's very nice to use once you get a hold of it. Some of the things that might be tedious to do with other systems, like I haven't tried authorizations and all this auth integration maybe. That will be another thing to try. So what I heard that a lot of people who start as front-end developers and start learning Kotlin on the mobile, and after that they also want to apply their skills somewhere else, so become kind of like a full stack developers. They this is how they end up in Ktor world because they already know Kotlin as a language to writing front-end apps, and now they also learn some of the serverless or like a server-side components. That's my impression that I learned over a couple weeks of using this Ktor with Rage.
Yeah, like for me, I've been using Spring since 2005, I think, and for me, Spring is the productive framework. If I want to get something done, Spring has a recipe for me.
Yeah,
And but with micro framework like Kate or any other, I get a skeleton, and then I can build whatever I want, and that whatever I want kind of option makes me think, what do I do actually, how do I do that, so it actually
right.
forces me to learn more stuff and be a better programmer.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. In this case, Spring has everything for you already. Like if you need to, okay, integrate with database. Here's Spring Data. If you need to integrate with the messaging system, there is a Spring MQP, Spring Kafka, some other things, or like a Spring Cloud Stream. But in Kotlin, it might, or in Kotlin, in Ktor, it might sound a little bit. Not overwhelming, but another way around. You know, you're trying to find the ways how you can do things, and like sometimes people, oh, like where's dependency injection framework? There's no dependency injection framework. It's a micro framework for writing web applications. There's no
No,
DI.
actually,
The,
so far, when we were trying to build stuff with Ktor, did you actually miss dependency injection? No, it
Not
was a
really.
pretty
Yeah,
simple stuff.
yeah, not really. So dependency injection is it something that it's good to have. However, it's and again it's like a more like opinion. Spring does this because you know they have opinions about how the things should be are. In Ktor, it's more. Now, I'm not saying there's definitely Ktor has certain opinions, but it doesn't force you to make those opinions. Some people might find this um, less structural. I know people who need to who lack in discipline, and I'm the first one. I like when the framework actually keeps me restrained, so I will not do any crazy stuff. However, like we were able to do some crazy stuff here, right? So we were trying to approach this configuration Kafka approach from perspective how I would say, oh, framework should give us like a cargo cult, right? The framework should give us this, but it's by the end of the day it makes you a better developer. So you can figure out that okay, framework can do this, but you can do this in other way around because it's just a language, and you can use any library if you want. So I think it's great. I think it was. I think it was awesome. All right, deal people. I think it is time to do to say goodbye, and it's time to say goodbye. As a matter of fact, I didn't mention this very beginning, but this is the final episode of Livestreams, season 1, season 2020, 2021 was a huge success. Thanks to many people who were involved, many people who helped me, Noel Gallagher, Victoria Yu, Peter Furia, Tim Birdland, a lot of people who help to make this happen, a lot of people in the community who show up and help to make the show awesome. I would like to say thanks to Anton who joined me in this like a very long special episode on the final episode of season 1. We haven't been picked up for season 2, so it's up to you. People like write down in the comments and saying, hey, where is the next episode of Livestreams coming in? We will update the metadata for this, the workshops, all these links, all the things that we mentioned during this workshop, and the time codes will be there after we'll finish recording. Again, Anton, always pleasure working with you and doing some awesome crazy stuff.
I'm honored to be in the last episode for this season.
Season finale. We should finish this in the cliffhanger, kind of like a Soprano style, just like end it in without no explanation. But no, we're not saying to you goodbye. We're saying to you, see you later. Thank you so much for being a part of Livestreams. As always, my name is Viktor Gamov, and have a nice day. Goodbye.